What is going on, you guys? I made a promise yesterday when I was live that I was coming back today. And of course, I get something in my throat as soon as I start talking. But do me a favor, as you guys start to jump on, would you please share this feed with a friend, with a family member, with somebody? If you don't do it right now at the beginning of the video, as you begin listening, you're gonna know, man, this message is for somebody. This message is for somebody who's been struggling, or somebody who's been going through hard times, or somebody who's on their way up. They're making healthy decisions. They're making forward progress, but that person needs just a little more fuel for the fire. All right, so if you guys don't know me, my name is Maurice F. Martin, and I empower individuals just like you to break through the limitations of the mind and fears of the soul as you go through life transition. And today, I think this video is going to be something that we need to talk about. I have titled this video Naked and Unafraid. Naked and Unafraid. Why? I've been thinking a lot about fear. Do you ever just sit around and ask yourself, self, what am I actually afraid of in life? You know, it's like that question that you get asked. There's like a get together and there's a bunch of deep people in the room, and somebody asks the question, what's your greatest fear? And for a lot of time in my life, the answer that I would come up with was, I'm afraid of failure. I'm afraid to fall. I'm afraid of, and I would give these very specific answers. And lately, I'm realizing in my life that there is something different that I personally am actually afraid of. You see, failure is not actually that frightening. In fact, you have to fail in order to succeed. You have to fall before you can fully learn to stand. And so it's not necessarily the failure, it's something else, at least for me. Have you ever stood in front of a room naked? I don't mean physically naked, I mean emotionally and spiritually naked. No masks, no facades, keeping it real, heart on your sleeve, bearing it all to the world, and been completely crushed. It's one of the scariest moments in life. It's a moment that some people in life never actually recover from. I talk to people all the time who reveal these moments of sitting in front of loved ones, bearing their heart to people that have been begging for them to open up, and they finally open up, and as they take the armor off and they put the shields down, it's like swords of hate come come rushing in to cut you in the deepest places and spaces of your life. Do me a favor, if I'm talking to you already, just put in the comments, you're talking to me. I've been there. I have been afraid to get naked in front of people. Most of my life, I was afraid to be naked in front of people. And I learned at an early age how to hide behind wit and charm and intelligence. And I'm still good at it. If I want to be, I can dance around keeping it real with you. And why does a person ever avoid being real other than that you don't think that you can handle being real with them, or you don't think that they can handle you all the way real? Selena's watching. She says, you're talking to me. I've been there. That is a moment when you keep it all the way real, when you put your hopes and your dreams on the table, that if people don't handle that moment with care, it will crush you in such a way that honestly stifles you from forward progress. And it's something that we have to talk about for so many individuals that I know. One thing that I've learned, the people who I work with are often, they have people who are called to them. People who are called to me have someone called to them. They're leaders in places. They're moms and dads. They're entrepreneurs. They're pastors and preachers and teachers. Somebody is depending on them to rise above where they've been and emerge into the fullness of the potential of their future. And that is a very difficult thing to do when you understand that the greatest version of you, the greatest mom, the greatest dad, the greatest pastor, preacher, teacher, prophet, the greatest entrepreneur is you, authentic and real. I'm going to say that again. I know that's hard to hear. The greatest version of you as a leader, as an entrepreneur, as a builder, as a helper, as a supporter, whatever it is that you value, it requires you to be the real you. In my butt, in your butt is too big. I call it the realest you. I mean, you're out here saying things that you know people want to hear, but you're hiding how you really feel. You're telling other people bare their heart and bare their soul and bare and do all these things, but on the inside for you, you're hiding. You're stuck. You guys know what I mean, because I think that at some point or another, everyone probably has been there. I think that everybody has experienced that. But we have to be willing and be brave enough to address it if you're going to transition into the next season of your life the way that you need to. You know, one of the hardest things for me to do, and this is the truth, is to come on these videos and speak. I have a gift of getting in front of people and speaking. And people often take my delivery as a lack of transparency. So in other words, I've had many people, they watch me do videos and they say, you know, it would just be really nice if you would be vulnerable. Multiple people. And I've been like, you have no idea. These videos, when I sit in front of a camera, are generally the most vulnerable moments I have. Outside of these moments, they're rooms with my wife, one-on-one, or it's me standing in rooms helping fight to save somebody's life. And if you ask people who have been in conversations with me when I'm fighting to save their life, this is the version of me they talk to. If you ask my wife what it's like in the most intimate moments of me bearing my soul, this is the version of me she talks to. And I'm generally not cracking jokes, and I'm generally not lighthearted, because I'm not a very lighthearted person. I'm intense, I'm deep, and I got a lot to say. And so what happens is some people, they take the moments, and I'm giving you guys an example of what it's like for me, because maybe you can relate to it, and maybe you can use it in your own transformation. People for so long in my life, they were used to me seeming happy-go-lucky and easygoing, right? So I was the person standing in a room cracking the jokes with a drink in my hands. But what happened when I got a couple drinks deep? I started to get deep with my words. See, I was the fun-loving person the moment I got the weed in my hands, but once the weed got in my system, I got real deep and philosophical. I used the drinks and the drugs as a transportation device to take me to authenticity. And the problem is that that's a toxic authenticity. So at one point you become real, and then all of a sudden something else comes out of you. It's an illegal pathway to the real you. That's why a lot of people, when they talk, they say things like, well, I need a drink because it gives me liquid courage. You're not exactly sure how to find the courage on your own, but a couple drinks, your inhibitions drop, you put your shields down, your mind stops racing, and now you can be the real you. Marisa, are you trying to tell everybody they should drink? No, I'm trying to tell you that there's a way that you can learn how to tap into the real you without it, but it takes a certain level of courage. You have to be willing to get naked and to be unafraid in those moments. unafraid of who will judge you, unafraid even of the scars and the wounds that might occur when you allow yourself to bear it all for the people, places, and things that deserve the real you. Now, don't get me wrong. Not everybody gets to see you real, but certainly some people in your life should. I recently was teaching a class about authentic leadership. Authentic leadership. And one of the things that I said in the teaching was, if you're really going to ask a person to let's say you own a company and you have employees, and those employees, you want them to come in and bear it all. You want them to give everything they've got for you. You want them to skip out on convenience and skip out on comfort and give away their time and their energy. You want them to sacrifice everything. The least that you can do is to show them the real you. To let them know that the reason sometimes you panic is not just because you're a jerk, but that sometimes you're afraid of the situations they don't know about. That the reason you are so passionate is that there are things that are driving you in your journey that they have never been privy to. And I'm not saying that everybody needs every facet of your story. But one of the problems in our culture is that we have made vulnerability into a hindrance. We have made vulnerability a curse word instead of revealing that vulnerability is a superpower. I'll say that again. Vulnerability is a superpower. When you have a leader who sits in front of you and says, now listen, I don't get it all right, and sometimes I do get it wrong, but one thing you know is I'm always going to give you everything I got. You stand a little taller for them. You believe a little fuller for them. You push and you give that extra mile for them. And if you don't want to look at the human leader, maybe you're like, but Maurice, I got to tell you, I don't have that kind of leader in my life. I wish I did. Or Maurice, I am the leader, so everybody's looking at me. Let me tell you something. If you haven't found that within yourself, I'm pretty sure that's what God was like. I'm pretty sure that's what God is like. You read a scripture and you read stories about Jesus. Jesus is all the way real and raw. People are saying, I don't understand what he's talking about. Jesus speaks and people say, oh, he's only saying that and doing that because he's being fueled and powered by the devil. Jesus stands in crowd with men who jeer him, who mock him, who criticize him 100% of the way. And yet, the people who follow him followed him with such fervor and such power that we read their words 2,000 years later, and they fuel our faith. You want to talk about true, authentic leadership? It is when you go so hard for your leader, so hard for the cause you believe in, that 2,000 years later, those words champion your journey and your faith. You want to talk about a legacy? That's a legacy of authenticity. Authenticity was Jesus' superpower. Maurice, isn't Jesus' superpower the Holy Spirit, and it's the fact that he was tethered to the Father? Yes, I understand. I understand. The scriptures and I get it. Yes, and it is being able to read about Jesus in the Garden of Gethsemane saying, Father, can this cup pass over me? Wondering, do I have to walk on this journey and go through this pain and walk through this torment, or is there another way? It's moments like that when I look at my own assignment, when I consider the struggles I'll have to face, that gives me courage to fight. that helps me to find the courage and encouragement to go fight for my family or for the people who are called to me who are waiting on the other side of this thing. I don't need liquid courage if I have God's. The joy of the Lord is my strength. And so what I'm trying to tell you is that when I look at the Jesus that I'm told that I'm supposed to follow as a believer, one of the things that I see in him is authenticity. He led people who he knew may betray him, and he didn't hold back. He didn't speak any differently to Judas than he did to John. Not according to what we read in the scriptures. And I want to give permission to you today to lead in a similar way. What if I told you that in the next season of your life, the next journey of your life, that what people need from you more than anything is for you to be the real you? What if I told you that someone is just as afraid as you, just as timid as you? They've got just as many insecurities and they've got just as much sitting on the table or hanging in the balance as you. And that your vulnerability will keep them from being 1 foot out of the business and 1 foot in the business. 1 foot out of the ministry and 1 foot in the ministry. You're not keeping it real, so they don't feel like they can trust you because they're looking at you, seeing something's off. They see the mask where your authenticity used to be. Your husband, your wife, she sees the mask where your authenticity used to be. And at moments like this, you need to understand that the thing that can save everything that you love is for you to take the mask off. And to face every fear as the real you. But Maurice, if I take some of this extra armor off, if I take some of these shields down, people will see that I'm wounded. They already see that you're wounded. They're waiting for you to admit that you're wounded. Did I just set somebody free? There's been so many times, man, I have tried so hard not to let people know I was wounded, and people were sitting there like, you don't think this is obvious? I mean, we see the clothes you're wearing, but you got blood stains. You're smiling, but all of a sudden it turns to a frown. You're friendly, but it quickly turns to bitterness. We see that you're wounded. And you keep saying, come to me, Maurice. Come to me, Maurice. I can help you if you let me. I'm not telling you that everybody needs access to your wounds. I'm not saying that everyone needs access to the story behind your wounds. There's a difference between access and vulnerability. See, there needs to be boundaries in your life. Some people can't get so close to you. But regardless how far away somebody is from you, they should have the ability to look and see who you really are. The greatest leaders I have ever sat in front of in my life were the type of leaders who kept it real, whether you liked it or not. They were going to keep it honest. And sometimes they waited and they strategically opened up about what they were struggling with and what they were fighting through and what was going on behind the scenes. I mean, that stuff takes strategy. And I'm not suggesting that it doesn't. But if you're always going to be fake, that's a great flaw. Because you want people to rally behind you, but they don't actually know who you are. You want people to support you. They're waiting for the real you to emerge so that they can. You need to hear that again. They would love to support you. They want to know who you are. I told you guys, those who watched my live yesterday, that so many people have been coming up to me and, Maurice, when are you going to start teaching lessons from Your Butt is Too Big? And when are you going? And I waited. I waited, and there was a lot of prayer. Oh my God, so much prayer. And time and conversations with my wife and strategy and making sure that when I started hitting record, that everything that I spoke was everything that I was meant to speak. Because I'm going to tell you something. Your Butt is Too Big is already helping change some lives. And I'm not saying that everybody who reads the book is going to have their life changed, because that's not real. But I'm going to tell you that some people have given me testimonies, and I see how powerful the book can be. And the lessons within it are lessons from my journey. And one thing that I can tell you is that nothing has been more important than me learning authentic fulfillment. How many times have I lived trying to accomplish things the way people expected me to? And I've moved up ladders, and I've accomplished things, and people have been clapping for me, and I felt like a fraud. I was laughing in moments I wanted to cry. I was shucking and jiving in moments I wanted to lay down, because I wasn't sure if I had enough energy to go on anymore. And so one of the things that you get nowadays when you watch me in videos, and Maurice, you always are pretty serious in these videos because you're getting the real me. My life is hanging in the balance. Somebody's life who's watching this video is hanging in the balance. The future of my children is hanging in the balance. I take it serious. And so sometimes what I got to do is I got to take the outfit that would be comfortable, and I got to put it down, and I have to be naked and unafraid. And I have to turn on a camera and sit in front of it and give you my vulnerability, even if you think that my vulnerability is an act. I have to be willing to open up and give you my authenticity, even though my authenticity to some people may seem fake. I have to be willing to lead by example, to show you that it's possible to lead by example. I'll tell you right now, I've cried more tears since I released the book in January than I did in the 6 months before it. Maurice, is such a thing as sharing too much information? Or does the fact that I've come so far in my journey, that I'm willing to tell you that even on the way up, even as I've been on podcasts in 4 countries. I've talked all over the United States in the last couple of months. I've had some TV appearances. Like, it's been a blessing. My wife and I have been as close as we've ever been in our marriage. Our kids are healthy. No, this is like one of the greatest periods of my life in a whole lot of ways. And, not but, and I've cried more tears than I've cried. Maurice, how is that possible? Because there was a time in my life I couldn't cry. Sometimes the ability to express your emotions fully is the healthiest thing you can do. To let out the frustration or the fear or the aggravation so that it doesn't have its grip on you anymore. That's called freedom. I understand that they say that big boys don't cry. Understand that grown men do. I know that they say that big girls don't cry, but grown, healthy women do. And I'm not suggesting that tears and crying is the only real emotion. I'm suggesting that if it's your real emotion, then do it. I've had more difficult conversations than I've had in the last 6 months with people. I set boundaries that I did not feel comfortable setting. I said no at times people wanted me to say yes. I stood at times when people wanted me to sit, and sat at times that people wanted me to stand. Because to do what it is that you've been put on the earth to do will not always be easy. Maurice, that sounds like defiance. Are you sure? Because it also sounds like Jesus. Wait, wait. How does he keep bringing everything back to Jesus? That can't really sound like Jesus. Are you sure? Because they were like, listen, it's the Sabbath. There's certain things we don't do on the Sabbath. And Jesus was like, so you're telling me that I shouldn't heal this man right now? And they're like, no, the law of Moses said, and okay, let's go ahead and heal this man right now. I could point out so many scriptures. I'm not saying be defiant for defiance sake. I'm saying when you know you are on the pathway to purpose and that you are doing the right thing, and you know that you are walking holy and humbly, and you know that God is calling you to walk in a direction, then he will be your protection even when people throw darts. When you are looking to people and they're telling you they'll be the ones to maintain you, and God is saying, no, go a different direction, he'll be the one to sustain you. There are moments in life where God will show you that he's God by making you stand in the face of adversity. There's a reason why I talk in my book about how so many times when God showed up and spoke to men and spoke to women, their reaction was, but God, you couldn't mean me. But God, you must have the wrong one. Why? Because oftentimes the assignment that people were called into looked like danger. It was something that would risk their life or risk their or risk their reputation. It was a situation where the vulnerability of the moment could have crushed them physically, emotionally, spiritually. And they said, no, I don't think I'm the one for that. God, you can't send me in there to go talk to Pharaoh. I got a history. The people didn't even like me when I left, and I don't speak well. I can't go back there. And yet God said, but who's sending you? He goes to Ezekiel and he says, Ezekiel, I need you to go, and I need you to go win victory for my people. And Ezekiel's like, you ain't seen the situation around here? We all losing. And I'm the biggest loser of them all. And I don't mean the TV show. I don't mean weight loss. I mean, like, he felt like he was the weakest and the smallest of the weakest and the smallest. And yet sometimes God will call you to stand in front of opposition that looks greater than you from the outside, because he understands what he placed in you on the inside. I hope y'all are hearing this right now. I didn't know I was going to be on here preaching like this. It was not the game plan. But I promised myself I would come and be naked and unafraid. Is it possible that the people who are relying on you, they need you to be willing to face everything that is standing in opposition to your success? They need you to stand and face whatever is standing in opposition of your purpose. And they need to see you do it naked and unafraid. Or should I say, naked and willing to overcome the fear that you feel by placing all of your trust in God. You may feel the fear, but you have to be willing to move anyway. You can feel the resistance, but you have to push forward anyway. You may feel unsettled, but maybe it's because God doesn't want you to settle in this place. This is the place where you're supposed to keep pushing. There's another level for you. another level of faith, another level of courage, another level of anointing, another level of leadership is waiting for you on the other side of this thing. And you only get to the other side of this thing with your authenticity, facing stuff as the real you. Some of us needed this at this moment. I'm so happy to hear that. And I'm about to close, but let me say this. The reason that someone needs it, the reason that you need it, is that any time you live life as your representative, the blessings, the miracles, the maturity and the growth that you need in your life, those things are often stifled when you're living as a version of you that's not authentic. Don't get me wrong, God will still bless you. God can still touch your life because God is God and God gives grace. But sometimes, because I haven't stood in a place and really taken the moment on, I prolong a season to be longer than it needs to be. There's a lesson that I need to grow in this season. There's lessons that need to be learned. There is maturity that needs to be gained in a season. And if I don't stand in the season and say, God, I trust you with everything, I will be here as your living sacrifice, holy and pleasing in your sight. If you don't say, God, just use me and let me sit here and let the people watch me and learn from me and let me learn from my own failings and my own pride. If you're not willing to do those things, the season takes longer, and it takes longer for you to learn the lessons because you're going through the process without being the real you. You can't learn without being the real you. Because that burns too much energy thinking about how to put on an act. Your season is prolonged. Your journey is prolonged. Going from faith to faith and glory to glory takes longer than it needs to because you're spending half of your energy trying to put on a show for people. And I don't know about you, but I don't have the energy to be fake anymore. I don't know about you, but I don't have the strength anymore to put on an act. And so for the people who I can't afford to wear a mask, I often sit in rooms quietly. If I don't feel that the Lord wants me to go down the wrong path, this would be the path that I would go down, and that ain't the right path, because that's not the path of accountability, and that's not the path of faithfulness, and that's not the path of holiness, and that's not the path of what God is calling me to, then I will stay quiet. I will trust the Lord when he says, be still and know that I am God. I don't have to play God in that moment. I don't have to open up my mouth and manipulate. I don't have to open up my mouth and fight fights when God says, this is my battle. Sometimes I have to be quiet. And then when God tells me to speak, that I trust that he'll do with me the same that he did with with Jeremiah. Lord, just touch my tongue. Lord, touch my lips. Give me the words so I don't have to think of them on my own. Do me a favor, if this message has blessed you today, if it has touched you today, would you do me a favor? Would you send this to somebody? Would you share it on social media? Would you make sure that somebody gets a chance to see this? Somebody needs for you to stand up as you. But more importantly, you need you to stand up as the real you, so that this season of your life and the transition and transformation that you're walking through is not prolonged simply because you're walking afraid or walking trying to put extra guards over yourself. Let vulnerability be your superpower. I am excited. I don't know how many of you guys have heard yet, but if you have not heard, one of the things that I'm going to be doing is next month, I am doing a 2-day course. I am excited about it. I announced it in a video last week. I know some people didn't see it. I sent it out on the mailing list, but I'm trying to make sure that everybody gets a chance to get this information. And that is that on the 22nd and 23rd of next month, I am hosting Authentically Fulfilled. That's right. We're talking about all the information that I'm giving you right now. Think about this intensity and this level of teaching coming out over the course of 2 days. I'm thinking it's going to be a minimum of 8 hours long, but there's going to be a chance it's longer because for the people who sign up for the course between now and the 22nd, there are a few perks that you guys will receive. So just understand, I'm going to explain to you guys how this process will work. So after I film the workshop is going to go up and it will be available on my website. It's going to cost $397 at least for the beginning of the journey, and after a while the price may raise. We'll see, but I know that it will start off as $397, and people will just watch me teach. They'll just watch the video, they'll watch the pre-recording. But for anybody who wants to sign up now and take part in it, number one, you will experience it live. So for some of you, hopefully you'll be able to make it. I don't know if I'm teaching in Cleveland or Akron yet. I'm still making a final decision on the location, but it'll be one of those locations. And so if you want to be there, you can sit in the room with me live, or you'll have the ability to join me virtually. And so after the modules are done, you'll have a chance to ask me questions. We'll talk amongst each other, and so you will get the full experience of me pouring into you. That's something that the other people who purchase the course later will not receive. And it's $100 off the price. So you'll get more experience and you don't have to pay as much for it. I feel like that's a pretty sweet deal. And so that was one of the things, as Ash and I, we sat and we talked and we prayed and we went back and forth on how are we going to do this thing. And that was my sticking point. Was I want to make sure that if people take part in this right now, I want to give them the opportunity to get me in the flesh as a teacher. And however God wants to move, God will move. So I'm telling you how long I think it'll take based on what I know, what materials are in there, because I've spent time putting these materials together. But God can move how he wants. For all I know, I'll do 2 days and I'll end up having to do a third day online virtually. We'll see how it plays out, because I want to make sure that I do what it is that's required. So do me a favor, go to yourbuttistobig.com/course, sign up, register today. By the way, maybe you have somebody and you're like, man, there's this person I know. They need the course. They want the course. Like the course could change their life. They're desperate for the course. They're in a situation they want to change. They need to change, but they can't afford that. Reach out to me. I can't promise that I'm gonna do too many scholarships. This is how my family's gonna eat. I can't promise, but at the end of the day, I'm doing the Lord's work, right? And so, if there is a way that I can bless a few people, then I will. If any of you guys feel led, to give extra so that somebody has scholarship money available, you can do that too. However, your hearts are moved. I know some of you are watching live, some of you are watching on the replay. I'm just letting you know that if there's a person or two who is in a rough place and there's just no way they could ever afford it, but they need it and they're desperate for it, I'll see what I can do. Why? Because I don't work for me. I work for God. Don't get it twisted. I see so many people, by the way. Soapbox moment at the end of my video. Soapbox moment at the end, because you can get on your own soapbox when it's your video, can't you? Can't you? Can't you get on your own soapbox on your video? Can't you do it? I feel like you should be able to do it. I see a lot of people on social media, especially people in the God space. that talk about motivational and inspirational speakers, and they're like, oh, everybody wants to be a motivational speaker, and people don't want to just preach the gospel. What if God made some of us motivational speakers? What if God made some of us inspirational speakers? What if with some of us sit down at the feet of God in prayer, and God gives us glimpses into what he's calling us to, or when we say, God, fill my mouth, what if these are the words that come out? Maurice, why are you on your soapbox like this right now? Because I said I would be naked and unafraid. I want to give you permission to walk in the fullness of whoever God made you to be. Whatever type of entrepreneur, whatever type of business person, whatever type of mother, whatever type of father, whatever type of whatever you were put on the earth to be, I want to help you become it. That's what I'm here for. So if you're down, if you're willing, if you're able, if you're ready, sign up for the course. If you don't do nothing else, subscribe to my YouTube channel. If you're not watching on YouTube right now, go to my YouTube channel, subscribe to my YouTube channel. I've got Hope Rising as it continues to come out. We're about halfway through season number 1 right now, a little over halfway. And so continue. I'm going to keep pouring in hope and inspiration and faith, because that's what God told me to do, and that's what God showed me. And I want to help you find the encouragement and find the courage to do what it is he told you to do, to live authentically fulfilled. All right, y'all. Thank you so much. I love you guys. I see a bunch of you are watching right now. I see you, Kelly, Selena, Tanisha, Dante. I know there was a couple other names I saw too. Robert, Rob. So for everybody who jumped on, I love y'all. I appreciate you. For everybody who's watching on replay, leave comments so I know who you are. If you need prayer, if you need encouragement, don't hesitate to leave that in the comments as well so that I can jump in and do just that. God bless y'all and have a great evening.